here in just one moment, but before we do, if you could confirm that you can both hear my voice as well as see my screen, and then we can get started with the webinar. Thank you. We got a confirmation from Dean. I'll take that as a reliable source so we can get started. Just a brief introduction. My name is Peter. I am VooPlayer's product manager, and we are holding these weekly webinar calls in order to answer any questions that you as users may have, also to provide any training or share any advice from our previous experience in covering use cases for video and business, also to showcase new stuff that we've been working on so that you are aware of progress and can come up with new and interesting ways in which you can leverage value from VooPlayer, and also ultimately to gather, organize, sort, prioritize any feedback that you may have, or criticism, or suggestions on how we can keep improving VooPlayer, or what new features we're missing, or what competitors are doing that you are seeing as potential value adds to VooPlayer. So it's a bit of a free-for-all, and the format is pretty straightforward. At any time that you have one of those questions, thoughts, or suggestions, just feel free to drop it in this little chat box over here, and then we'll just start addressing them in the order that they come in. So what else? We also need to mention that if you're unable to attend any of these webinar calls, you are more than welcome to check out the weekly replays, which are available both on our YouTube channel, which is youtube.com/c/VooPlayer, as well as in our Facebook group, which is facebook.com/groups/VooPlayer. In addition to which, also, if you are unable to attend these webinars but do wish to contribute those ideas and suggestions that I was just talking about in the application, you can click on the documentation and support and submit and vote on ideas, where you will be taken to this portal from which you can review stuff that we are currently working on, so you can stay up to date. Also stuff that we're considering doing, as well as stuff that's been recently launched, and ultimately submit your new ideas and suggestions, as well as declare your priority for them. So let me share this link as well, so that this is always available in the application conveniently. Whenever you're working on somebody, you can just click on documentation and support, submit and vote on your new ideas, and you can check out what's going on there. So let me just share that link with you as well. Did I get it? There it is. All right, excellent, cool. So I think I got most of the housekeeping out of the way. Oh yeah, I didn't mention, if you haven't already, subscribe to that YouTube channel and join that Facebook group. Those are also valuable resources for sharing ideas between VooPlayer users. Sometimes someone will ask a question in the Facebook group, hey, has anybody had any experience with, for example, embedding VooPlayer in the Oxygen builder, and then somebody will probably refer you to one of the helpful documentation articles, which also a good thing to mention on this webinar. So if you're just getting started with VooPlayer and they're not completely familiar with everything, or are a bit lost with the onboarding process, the docs.vooplayer.com is a great knowledge base library as a reference for everybody getting started. And there's a section on getting started and creating your first video and publishing it, and checking out the video tutorials and step-by-step walkthroughs. So if you are just getting started with VooPlayer, that's a great resource to have handy. So let me just share a link to that as well. So you have it. There we go. All right, cool. Now I think I got all of the housekeeping out of the way. All right, cool. So I was going to say not ready to do funnels once again today, but I think at one point you just kind of need to say what we have. So let's just kind of take a look at it and see just the direction in which they're heading. So as you know, we're starting to rework the entirety of how video funnels are. And if you're not familiar with video funnels, they are allowing you to interactively branch your video. So in the middle of your video, you can ask a question. For example, are you a male or a female? And then based on those answers, you can take each individual answer to another video, or you can take them to a link, or then you can ask them subsequent questions. If you're a male, do you prefer, I don't know, NASCAR or NFL or NBA? And then based on those answers, you can follow up with questions, as in our example, where would you like to travel this summer? I would like to go to the mountains. And then if you go to the mountains, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So you can, if you're not familiar with the funnels and how the branching between them works, that's also a good resource to check out, keeping in mind that they are only available on the enterprise license. So the big problem that we were facing with funnels when we first released them a few years ago was that they required a hierarchical structure, meaning that you could only ask a specific question if somebody has already provided a specific answer, meaning that if you wanted to build a quiz-like experience where you have 4 answers to a question, and then regardless of what the person answers, you wanted to ask a follow-up question, which would be the same for all answers. It was very difficult to do that, and especially if that nested structure went down 3, 4, 5 levels deep. So that was incredibly difficult to do. So in our restructuring, that was one of the main things that we wanted to do, was to keep let me actually pull up the current funnels as well, so we can kind of start looking at them side by side to see some differences. So keep it in mind that everything that I'm going to show you with regards to the funnels is in a very, very rough draft stage with regards to kind of the visuals and the UI of it. I do actually think I have some mock-ups of what that's supposed to look like in the end, but for now we'll just kind of suck it up with the sucky graphics. So let me also pull up the current funnels as well. So this is the funnels as they are currently in VooPlayer. I'll just have that on one side just as a reference point on what we're looking at. So this is what I was talking about previously, is we have the nested structure, meaning that if you wanted to get to question 2, somebody definitely needed to answer, do you prefer casual sneakers or elegant high heels? Somebody definitely needed to answer sneakers, and that was the only way to get to the question of how do you usually wear your hair, casual or done up. So if you wanted to get to this question of how do you usually wear your hair, casual or done up, and somebody answered heels, you will need to create another question that basically mimics the second question, and so on and so on and so on. So you get the point. So that's how it was kind of laid out in how it is currently laid out in the current iteration of funnels. So in the new iteration of funnels, we are leveling out that hierarchy to a 1-level structure. So that's the major change, is that nothing is underneath anything anymore, which means that everything can connect to one another. So you can connect a sub question from an answer from any step to any other step or action, and then we'll get into that a little bit more, but I just wanted to highlight that as one of the main changes. That's one change that's worth good to know up front. And the second change is that we are no longer looking at individual items in funnels necessarily as questions. We are looking at them as steps. So no longer do you have funnel questions, even though a step can have a type of a question. So steps can be questions, steps can be data collection items, steps can be lead forms, steps can be new videos. So those are the different types of steps that we're going to have inside of this new funnel structure. So that means that at any time you can, for example, in previous funnels, you had something which was what's going to happen at the end of the funnel. So basically, somebody was going through the funnel and they were just answering questions, and then at the end of the funnel, you basically had an option of either do nothing, which means just let the video play until the end, or gather the lead information, which presented a form for, I think, name and email, and I think that was that. And that was all you had. So with kind of the new structure, with both the combination of the steps and that flat hierarchy, you're going to be able to do something along the lines of saying, after this question, so on this question, why is that? I can bring up that question, and in it, I can say, if somebody answers leave me be, instead of going to another question, I can say collect information. And at that point where I collect information, I can say, when somebody says, why is that? And says somebody answers leave me be, I can collect information. And at that point, I can provide them with a customized input, which I can store and then later use the value which was provided in that. So I can say, for example, I can ask a custom question like, what's your shoe size, or what's your name, whatever. So I can present them with a custom question, provide a customized way to store the data provided from that input, and then even if I wanted to, I can utilize that later on in one of the subsequent steps or videos in the funnel, and present that information, feed that information back to the viewer via the personalization feature. So a lot of this might be somewhat hard to swallow up front, so I just kind of wanted to start sharing all of this information with you so you kind of get the basic idea of this. The general direction that we're moving in, and kind of the idea behind the interface and all of the interactions. So as we go through the iterations on building or reworking rather this entire module, we want to share our progress with you as we move forward, so that everybody's able to pitch in and figure out what's the best way to contribute feedback to us in order to make sure that this time we get it right. So as far as just as far as the layout goes, you'll notice previously the main section of the interface was consumed by the question, which was up front, and below that you had the configuration for the answers for that question, and that was all well and fine, with the big kind of missed opportunity on that of gaining a better understanding of the structure of the funnel. So with the new rework, what we want to do is bring up front a big visual representation of the funnel, and I think this is and actually let me get that mock-up of what the UI is supposed to look like on the end when the styling is complete. So on the left hand side you can see a representation of that flat hierarchy where you have questions and the answers, and you have an easy understanding of which step goes with which video, where video change has occurred, and at what point in time an individual step is going to be triggered. So that's kind of what it's going to look like in the end. We still haven't ironed it out, but for the purposes of just getting through this, getting through the motions of understanding what the best data structure behind this is and how we're going to be able to support the interactions such as dragging and dropping the connection from one answer to another step and so on. This is the simple mock-up that we've done so far. So that's going to be the main representation that is going to allow you to see everything that's going on. And of course, that's going to look a lot nicer, and you're going to be able to zoom it in and out and drag it around, etc. So as you may have noticed, we want to also bring another improvement to the module, which is the preview of all of the steps in a much more higher fidelity. Again, as you may know, the answers themselves are going to the rework, so the same sort of draft mentality that we are approaching this with, keep that in mind. So we want to give you a one-to-one representation of what the funnels are going to, what that question is going to look like when your viewers see it. So you know that up front. Previously, you basically had this, and if you started sort of cramping the answers in here, that lost fidelity quite quickly, so you had no idea what that's going to look like in the end. So the rework is going to give you the accurate representation of what the questions are going to look like, both on desktop devices as well as on mobile screens, which is going to play a big role in how we decide to design the new answers as well. So the new answers are going to be much more basic, I think, in structure rather than the previous ones. So more or less, I think we don't want to allow you as users to go crazy with the styling and the HTML and the images and everything that you're going to be able to enter into that. We're basically going to keep to a very simple structure, which we're going to be able to control much more to a much finer degree, giving us the ability to kind of guide the experience that the viewer is having when interacting with those answers. So that's something that we're going to keep a little bit more control over, but that way we're going to be assuring the better experience for the viewers. So that's that bottom part, which usually pops up whenever you open up one of these questions. So if you open up this question, for example, would you like us to present you a video? You can see that what used to be the sort of the central part of the screen is now basically the right hand side of it. So if we'll just come back to the beginning of it, you see that over here we have the identification of all of the funnel steps, as well as we can see what type they are. So this is a question, this is a question, this is a question, this is a data input form, and this is a data input form. Below that, we have a configuration for appearance and style, and advanced options. We haven't gotten to that, but basically you can see how the interaction flow is going to be like. So you have all of the funnels, and you can interact with them. Sorry, you have all of the steps, and you can interact with them either from the board, or you can choose the the steps from the right hand panel. And over here you can see, so this is the question, which is going to appear in this video at the beginning of this video, and you can say I don't want it to appear at the beginning. You can change where you want it to appear, or you can use the player to see that, and then you can configure the answers for each question. So you can so this is the answer first, whatever, and you can see it there, and you can configure all of the options that you were able to configure for it in the old. So basically, much of this is very familiar, just kind of reconfigured for a better understanding, we believe. And you can choose the actions that you want it to have. You can continue the video, you can go to another question, any question, a previous question, or a question that originated from some other answer. So you can go to any question. You can jump to a timed video. You can change the video, or you can collect information by sort of creating your own custom form, and also redirect to the URL. So those are going to be some of the options that are going to be available to as actions for individual answers. Say you can add as many answers as you want, of course, for a particular question, and then that kind of updates the entire structure. So that's what I wanted to show you right off the bat. It still looks kind of crappy, but just the initial idea is something that I wanted to start getting in front of you guys, so you have a feel for how the rework is going and the direction in which is taken. As I mentioned, it's certainly a lot to take in right now. So I would suggest taking a look at the replay once it becomes available later tonight. The emails, I think, is going to be linked to, you're going to get the email with the link to the replay, or if not, just check our YouTube channel tomorrow, or if you're in the group, you'll be notified, and then maybe start going through the replay and start taking this section by section, and then we'll gladly, as I mentioned, we'll review the progress from this week on the next week's call. So we'll be able to take questions then, or if something caught your eye now, we can review that as well. I see some questions did start popping up. So Lewis is asking, do sub accounts get funnels? Yes, absolutely. So sub accounts are considered enterprise licenses. So everything that an enterprise account has, with the exception of a few things which can't exist without the master account, such as the configuration of the sites, etc., etc. So basically, everything that makes the sub account unaware of WooPlayer existing is available to the sub accounts, as well as on all enterprise licenses. Lewis is also saying, on top of possible answers, is there a way that one is blank and that the viewer can input their own response? I was just discussing that. So that's an interesting suggestion. So we currently have an option where you can either provide multiple choice answers, if you will, or you can provide an input field. We haven't considered a combination of the both, where you can sort of have a multiple choice, and on that you can kind of input whatever you want. But the tricky part about that is if that happens, then you will kind of have to have a separate configuration of what happens when they input that field. I'll note that as a feedback point for configuration, for being able to add a sort of another option for a multiple choice, where that would allow the viewer to, let me just note down the feedback, that would allow the viewer to enter in their own response in combination with the multiple choice. As I said, we do want to introduce that option on its own, but I'm not sure how we're going to be able to configure the subsequent steps based on that information. We'll see. I'll definitely note that for consideration with the team. Ricardo is saying, can you link URLs additional to video paths? I'm not sure I understand your question, Ricardo. Is this in regards to funnels or something entirely different? Can you link URLs to additional video paths? Oh, can you link a URL as in so video paths? So definitely with regards to funnels. Can you link URLs to additional video paths? So basically just change a video if an answer is selected. So if somebody answered no here, and then as a action on this answer, you would basically just choose change the video, and that would change the video. And I think this is what you're referring to. So yeah, that's available now. It's been available and it is available in the actual funnels as they are currently on production. Only that it's sometimes working and sometimes not. So that's also one of the things that we want to address. Roger is saying this is amazing and a game changer. It's getting there. I myself am kind of displeased with the progress that we're making on this. We should be moving a lot faster. And maybe we shouldn't. We're trying to make sure that this time we get it right. So we're kind of going back and forth and starting and then going back, moving one step forward, two steps back, and rewriting the structure and rewriting the funnel builder visual UI. So it's moving along. We'll see. As I mentioned, I wanted to do this, and again I was going to delay it again and say, hey, we're not ready to start showing funnels, but I did that for the last couple of weeks. I think at one point we just need to kind of start having a conversation around this. So hopefully it yields in some constructive feedback in the next few weeks as we share the progress. Lewis is saying the replays have not been going up for nearly a week. So the last week's webinar hasn't been up. We'll check on that. Nice, good options from Ricardo. Dean echoing the Lewis said replays. I think a blank input would have to be at the end of the funnel. Video replay, not getting an email since you guys switched to Demio. Okay, I think a blank input would have to be at the end of the funnel. It wouldn't necessarily have to be. You can just have it in the middle of the funnel. So for example, I asked you, are you a male or a female? You clicked on I'm a male, so the video simply continues, or maybe immediately after that, it just asks you, hey dude, what's your name? And you just type in Lewis, and the video just continues. And then maybe some 20-30 seconds down the road, it says, hey Lewis, do you like NBA or NFL more? You kind of get my point. So I think it has a place on its own as a standalone value, which then you can collect and reutilize at any point in the funnel or the videos, or subsequently in the analytics, or for your CRM purposes and further automation and segmentation. You were thinking more in lines of form of feedback. It's up to you how you want to use that. You can use it as, hey, did you enjoy watching this video? If so, could you, that was a yes or no. Do you have any feedback on how we can improve our whatever customer experience? I see the use cases for that as well. It's really up to you. You can use it at the end. You can use it at the beginning. You can use it in the middle. It's really an open-ended, and that's one of the things that we wanted to achieve. We previously you had that. One of the only way that you could even collect any sort of information aside from the answers themselves is to wait until the very, very end, and then you can just get a lead information, which provided which made you create your flows in such a way that was pretty rigid. So we want to give more flexibility to you as users in deciding which interactions in the flow come at which time. So that's why we decided to separate the steps as non-hierarchical items and having them be different types, such as a multiple choice question, an open-ended question, change of video, and so on. So those individual steps can be combined in different ways to provide for more dynamic funnel flows. It's not strictly a linear click, 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 thank you. Oh, I forgot to mention, we're also gonna have a sort of a thank you screen or an end screen, a step type as well. So that's also something that we've got a lot of feedback on. Hey, it just ends. We get no way to sort of show them any sort of feedback to their answers. So that's also something that we're going to present, and that's also good. So on that thank you screen, you're also going to be able to feedback their responses to them, saying, thank you for choosing NFL and your favorite player is whoever. I don't know any NFL players. So you get the idea. I'll make sure to investigate what's going on with webinar replays. Somebody hasn't been posting them. I'll get to the bottom of that. If they haven't been posted on the YouTube channel or the Facebook group, we'll make sure that they're posted right after this call for the previous week, and then in a couple of hours they're going to be available for the today's call. All right, let's see. Ricardo is saying, for example, can I use a link with the form as a final action in the funnel? Can I use a link with the form as a final action in the funnel after all the funnel videos? Yes, absolutely. You can. And that's what I was just describing. You can sort of have a thank you screen, which can be completely customized, and you can have different links to different videos or anything really. Antal is saying, can videos contain buttons with option to jump in the same screen to the next video? Yes, that's exactly what we were describing right now. So any of these answers that you provide can change the video in the same screen. Not only that, if you don't want to use the funnels for this, you can also use hotspots, which are available for all licenses. I think even free licenses have the capacity to do this on Tall. So you can just come to create a hotspot, and one of the hotspots, I think it's called change a video. So you can create a dynamic hotspot. So I'll come just over here to marketing tools, and that's inside of interactions and CTAs, and that's overlays and annotations. And then you want to select hotspots, and there we have hotspots to change the video. So you can just create a point in the video, or a button if you will, or you can give it an image background of some sort and position it wherever you want, and then you can just have it change a video. I think there's let me just hotspots rather than me just no, that's overlays. Show overlay at the end of the video, overlay to interactive, blah 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 blah. Hotspots. Why are we missing hotspots from the documentation, or we're just referring to them as overlays? Overlays. Sorry guys, just trying to overlays 2.0 announcement. That's not it. Interactive overlays. All right, so they're inside of this. All right, so this is the documentation on the overlays, so that might be useful for you on Tall to get familiar with. And also, I know that we have it in here, so let me just find the video talking to this a little bit more specifically about hotspots and that changing video functionality. Let me just share this video with you as well really quickly. So this is to Antal. take a look at those links, and I think you'll see the utilization of hotspots as the resource for changing the video. Lewis is saying, I was thinking more in line with the, we already got to that. Last week's went up yesterday. All right, a bit of a delay, but it got there. Any math functions that can be applied to a number input answers? Yes, great question from Rick, and that's something that we weren't sure that we wanted to keep in the rework. So currently what you had was, and this is in the current iteration that's currently active, you had the ability to attribute to each answer calculator values. We were referring to them as sort of money values, but basically they're just any integer value that, or even a decimal float value that you can provide. So you can assign that this answer has the value of 3.1. and you can assign an operator which was either add or multiply that value. So you, based on each answer which followed it, if somebody followed that, for example, with a value of 2, then you would have a subsequent value of 6.2. So something that we're still exploring how we want to address in the new iteration. But yes, that sort of thing gave you the ability to provide simple math functions on the answers and get sort of final values based on which back in the analytics section on the admin dashboard, then you can sort of filter the answers only by minimum or maximum values, et cetera, is one of the filters in analytics for answers. And I think you were even able to utilize those values and pass them forward as values to CRMs, et cetera. All right. Cool. If there are any final questions not related to funnels, this ended up eating a lot more time than I originally anticipated. Now will be a time for them. We kind of stepped over the half-hour mark, but it's been a productive conversation. So I want to thank everybody who took the time to join this week, and especially everybody who contributed. Thanks for all of the ideas and few reminders. I would have completely forgotten about the math functions. I'll try and get on top of the replays not going up as immediately as they should be. So I'll remind the person doing that to post a replay for the day's webinar tonight, so that you guys can review everything that I went through so quickly, and you probably didn't get a chance to review thoroughly. And as I mentioned, we'll definitely keep doing this every week as we progress on the rework of the module. We'll get each iteration in front of you for a sense of improvement and how we're progressing. I can't wait until we get to the step of actually seeing this in action, where we're able to get the answers and configure them, and that's to come in the following weeks. So once again, thanks everybody for joining this week. Hopefully we'll see you next week, and have a great remainder of this week. Bye.